Imagine this: you're standing in the middle of a dark, misty forest, the only sound the distant howl of wolves. Suddenly, through the gloom, you spot a mysterious silhouette rising majestically against the skyline. It's not a modern skyscraper, it's a medieval castle, a living testament to an era when power and privilege were measured in stone and steel. Step inside this ancient fortress, and you're transported back to a world where life was a constant struggle between order and chaos. The very walls whisper secrets of bygone days, when kings and knights ruled over peasants and serfs. But what was it really like to live within these mighty structures? Let's begin our journey with a shocking revelation. Medieval castles were not just impregnable fortresses. They were living organisms, pulsating with the rhythms of daily life. At their heart was a complex web of power dynamics, where every stone had its purpose. Picture this: dawn breaks over the battlements, and the first rays of sunlight illuminate a scene of remarkable contrast. On one side, the lord of the manor enjoys his luxurious chambers, surrounded by wealth and privilege. On the other, his servants toil away in the shadowy dungeons below, their lives measured in hardship and certitude. The castle was a microcosm of medieval society, where every aspect of life was governed by strict hierarchy. The lord's word was law, enforced by an army of knights who swore allegiance to their master. But beneath the grandeur lay a darker truth: survival in a castle was a constant game of power and intrigue. Imagine the tension as night falls and the castle falls silent. The only sounds are the creaking of ancient wood and the soft footfall of guards patrolling the walls. In this darkness, plots are hatched, secrets are whispered, and power struggles play out in the shadows. Every aspect of castle life was designed to maintain control. The great hall, where feasts were held, was also a stage for public displays of power. The kitchens, hidden beneath the castle, were the heart of daily life, where the simple act of feeding the entire garrison was a complex operation. But life wasn't just about power and politics, it was also about survival. The castle was a fortress against external threats, but its true strength lay in its ability to provide shelter and protection. During times of war, every man, woman, and child within the walls knew their lives depended on the strength of the stone around them. And then comes the moment of truth: the siege. As the enemy approaches, the castle becomes a living organism fighting for its survival. The drawbridge is lowered, the portcullis clatter shut, and the defenders prepare for the worst. In those final moments before the attack, we glimpse the true nature of castle life. The lord surveys his domain one last time, the servants hurry to their posts, and the knights take their places. And as the first arrow whistles through the air, we realize this is not just a structure of stone, it's a living testament to human resilience and the eternal struggle for power. So next time you look at a medieval castle, remember it's not just a relic of the past. It's a window into a world where life was harsh, power was absolute, and survival was a daily challenge. And perhaps deep within its ancient walls, you'll find echoes of the human spirit that still resonate today. Subscribe now for more fascinating stories from the past. And don't miss the next episode, where we uncover the secrets of medieval life inside the castle walls. The daily life within the castle walls was a constant dance between luxury and hardship. While the upper echelons enjoyed feasts fit for kings, the reality for most inhabitants was a far cry from such opulence. Let's delve deeper into this intriguing world. Imagine waking up before dawn, when the first light barely pierces through the narrow windows. Servants rise long before their masters, lighting the smoky torches and preparing the simple breakfast of bread and water. Hygiene was a luxury few could afford. Bathing was a rare occurrence, and the stench of unwashed bodies permeated the air. The heart of castle life beat in the great hall, where meals were both a necessity and a display of wealth. After a brief morning meal, the day's activities would commence. The lord would hold court, dispensing justice and making decisions that would affect the lives of everyone within the castle walls. But life wasn't just about formalities and ceremony. The castle was a living, breathing entity with its own rhythm and character. The kitchens were the nerve center, where the cooks, often skilled artisans, prepared elaborate feasts. The pantries were stocked with provisions for times of siege, and the cellars held ample supplies of wine and beer. One cannot ignore the role of the servants, the unsung heroes of castle life. They moved silently through the corridors, performing their duties with precision and grace. Their existence was one of constant movement and service, living in communal quarters with little privacy. The castle was also a place of learning and culture, albeit in its own peculiar way. The lord's household might employ a minstrel or scribe, preserving knowledge and spreading entertainment through songs and stories. Education was limited, but it existed within these walls. However, beneath the veneer of civilization lurked darker truths. The dungeons beneath the castle were a constant reminder of power and control. Prisoners were held there, subjected to torture and interrogation. The screams that echoed through the stone corridors spoke volumes about the brutal realities of medieval life. As night fell, the castle transformed into a different world. Shadows danced across the walls, and whispers replaced the daytime chatter. Guards patrolled the ramparts, ever vigilant against attack. The lord retired to his chambers, surrounded by trusted advisors, while the servants prepared for another day of service. walls. And so, we see the complex tapestry of life within these ancient walls. It was a world of contrasts, luxury and squalor, power and servitude, order and chaos. Each day was a struggle, but within these walls, humanity thrived, adapting to the demands of their extraordinary existence. Stay with us as we uncover more secrets of medieval life. Subscribe now to join our journey through history, where every story reveals a piece of our collective past. As we continue our journey through the medieval castle, we uncover yet another layer of this complex and fascinating world. The life within these walls was not only about survival and power, it was also about social structure and tradition. Let's consider the role of women in this society. While often overshadowed by their male counterparts, women played crucial roles both in the castle and beyond. The lady of the manor was not merely a passive figure. She oversaw the household, managed the servants, and sometimes even participated in political negotiations. Many ladies were skilled in the arts of diplomacy and strategy, using their influence to shape the fate of their families and retainers. The children growing up within the castle walls had a unique upbringing. They were taught the ways of the world through both formal education and practical experience. Young knights in training learned the art of combat, while their female counterparts learned the skills necessary to run a household. The castle was their school, where they learned the values of honor, loyalty, and duty, but life within the castle was not without its challenges. The constant threat of attack created a state of perpetual readiness. The drawbridge would be raised and lowered with military precision. The portcullis would clatter shut at the first sign of danger, and the garrison would prepare for defense. During sieges, the castle became a self-contained world where every resource was precious and every moment counted. The architecture itself played a crucial role in daily life. The massive stone walls provided protection, but also created a sense of enclosure. The narrow windows allowed in minimal light, creating a perpetual gloom that only the flickering torches and candles could dispel. The winding staircases, often designed with deliberate twists and turns, served both defensive and practical purposes, making it difficult for attackers to navigate. The castle was also a place of ritual and ceremony. Feasts and celebrations were held in the great hall, where the lord would entertain his guests with food, drink, and entertainment. The sounds of music and laughter would fill the air, providing a brief respite from the constant vigilance and hardship. As we conclude our journey through medieval castle life, we are left with a deeper understanding of this extraordinary world. It was a place of both beauty and brutality, where every aspect of existence was governed by necessity and tradition. And yet, within these ancient walls, we find echoes of human resilience, culture, and the timeless quest for power and security. Subscribe now to continue exploring the mysteries of the past. And remember, history is not just a series of events, it's the story of humanity's journey through time. As we delve deeper into the intricate world of medieval castle life, we encounter one of its most fascinating aspects, the intricate web of relationships that defined existence within these walls. The social dynamics were as complex as they were rigid, with every interaction carrying weight and meaning. Consider the relationship between the lord and his knights. These warriors were not merely mercenaries. They were sworn protectors, bound by oaths of loyalty that transcended mere duty. In return for their service, the knights received not only land and wealth, but also the privilege of being part of the inner circle of power. However, this relationship was not without its tensions. Ambition often clashed with loyalty, and whispers of dissent could be heard in the shadows. The servants, too, had their own hierarchy and complex social structure. From the highest-ranking steward to the lowest-ranking scullion, each had their place and role. The servants' lives were governed by strict rules and etiquette, with subtle power struggles constantly simmering beneath the surface. The ability to navigate the social landscape was a skill in itself, requiring cunning, patience, and a deep understanding of human nature. Religion played a crucial role in the daily life of the castle. The chapel was a central space where prayers were offered and religious ceremonies took place. The faith of the inhabitants provided a sense of order and meaning in a chaotic world. Priests and monks often resided within the castle walls, acting as advisors and confidants to the lord. The castle was also a center of trade and commerce. Provisions had to be carefully managed and trade relationships maintained. The lord's household might engage in bartering, exchanging goods and services with neighboring estates and merchants. This economic activity created a web of connections that extended far beyond the castle walls. As we approach the end of our journey, we realize that life within a medieval castle was not just about survival and power. It was about community, tradition, and the human spirit. These ancient structures were more than just fortresses. They were living organisms, pulsing with the rhythms of daily life, love, and loss. Each stone, each creaking wooden beam, each shadowed corner tells a story of a bygone era. As we stand in all of these magnificent structures, we are reminded of our own connection to this rich tapestry of history. We are the heirs of those who lived within these walls, and their legacy lies on in every aspect of our modern world. Subscribe now to continue exploring the mysteries of the past, and remember, history is not just a series of events, it's the story of humanity's journey through time, one castle at a time. In the final part of our journey to the medieval castle, we delve into the world of entertainment and leisure, which, despite the severity of the era, infused the life of its inhabitants with a special color and variety. The entertainment in the castle ranged from simple to easy-esque and yet. One of the most popular activities was tournaments and nightly contests where and warriors demonstrated their skill in weapon mastery. These spectacular events not only served as training for the but also strengthened the spirit of brotherhood among the warriors. Music and poetry held an important place in the cultural life of the castle. Minstrels and troubadours, wandering artists, found refuge within the castle walls, entertaining the inhabitants with their songs and poems. Their art was an integral part of daily life, creating an atmosphere of joy and inspiration even in the most difficult times. An integral part of leisure were also feasts and banquets. Magnificent feasts in the great hall gathered all the inhabitants of the castle, from the lord to the last servant. These events were accompanied not only by abundant but also by various entertainments, chess games, backgammon, as well as fun contests and dancing. Religious rites and ceremonies occupied a special place. The chapels and sacred places within the castle were the center of spiritual life. Prayers, fasts, and church services created a special atmosphere of piety and tranquility, filling the souls of the castle's inhabitants with faith and hope. Furthermore, the castle was a place of learning and knowledge transmission. Not only but also servants could study here, who, despite their position, sought knowledge and cultural development. Within the castle walls, learned monks and scribes often found refuge, sharing their knowledge and wisdom. And finally, the castle was a living organism where each day presented a new challenge, an opportunity to prove oneself. From daily duties to rare moments of joy, all this created a unique mosaic of life in which every element was important and necessary. We stand on the threshold of realizing how complex and multifaceted life in a medieval castle was. It was a world of contrasts and contradictions, where each day was filled with challenges and opportunities. And today, immersing ourselves in the study of this remarkable era, we find in it a reflection of our own history and human nature. Join us on this journey through the centuries, and remember, history is not just a collection of facts, it's the living fabric of our shared past, woven from many lives, events, and traditions. The sixth part of our journey into the medieval castle reveals another important aspect of life in these majestic structures: medicine and health. In those times, taking care of health was a complex and often ineffective endeavor, but the castle's inhabitants still tried to preserve their well-being. The castle had its own small medical staff consisting of doctors, apothecaries, and healers. These specialists possessed knowledge accumulated over centuries and used both traditional treatment methods and magical rituals. Medicines were prepared from herbs, roots, and natural ingredients that were grown in the castle garden or in the surrounding areas. However, medical care was not equally accessible to all. Knights and noble persons had more opportunities for treatment and care than ordinary servants. They had personal doctors and access to better quality remedies. The common inhabitants of the castle, on the other hand, minimal care and primitive treatment methods. Epidemics and diseases were frequent visitors in medieval castles. Plague, smallpox, and other contagious illnesses could devastate the fortress in no time. During such moments, discipline and order became particularly important. The sick were isolated in separate rooms, and the healthy tried to stay in their rooms without unnecessary movement. Hygiene, despite all efforts, remained a significant challenge. The castle wells and water sources were often contaminated, and the lack of basic amenities created favorable conditions for the spread of infections. Nevertheless, the castle's inhabitants tried to maintain cleanliness as best they could. They organized regular cleanings and used aromatic oils and herbs to freshen the air. Life in the castle also included elements of superstition and belief in the supernatural. Many healers combined their knowledge with magical practices, and noble persons often sought the help of astrologers and fortune tellers. These beliefs were an integral part of the worldview of that time and influenced all aspects of life. Thus, even in the conditions of a medieval castle, where comfort and hygiene left much to be desired, people strived to maintain health and well-being. Their efforts, despite the limitations of means and knowledge, created the foundation for survival and life continuation within these ancient walls. We see how multifaceted and complex life in the castle was, from the towering battlements to the dark dungeons, from lavish feasts to severe trials, from noble knights to humble servants. Each element of this mosaic makes the picture of medieval life even more vibrant and multifaceted. The seventh part of our journey through the medieval castle takes us into the world of education and culture, which, despite the harshness of the era, played an important role in the lives of its inhabitants. Within these majestic walls, refuge was found not only by knights and servants, but also by scholars, scribes, and craftsmen of various trades. The castle had a school where young knights and servants received initial instruction in literacy, numeracy, and military skills. Teachers, often monks or specially invited scribes, shared their knowledge in the scriptorium, a special room for copying books. Here, manuscripts were created and preserved, passed down from generation to generation. A special place in the cultural life of the castle was occupied by the library. Within its walls were stored ancient scrolls, religious texts, and chronicles, carefully guarded and studied. The librarian, a respected member of society, was responsible for the safety of the books and their accessibility for study. Furthermore, the castle was a center for musical and poetic arts. Minstrels and troubadours, finding shelter within its walls, entertained the inhabitants with their songs and poems, creating an atmosphere of inspiration and joy. Their art helped to forget the hardships of everyday life and served as a source of creative inspiration. An integral part of cultural life were also religious rites and ceremonies. The castle chapel was a place of worship and spiritual communication. Here, prayers, church services, and rituals took place, uniting the castle's inhabitants and filling their souls with faith and hope. The castle also flourished with crafts, blacksmithing, pottery, weaving, and jewelry making. Masters passed their knowledge to apprentices, creating unique items that were used both in everyday life and on occasions. Thus, the medieval castle was not only a fortress and seat of power, but also a center of culture, education, and art. Here, despite all the difficulties and challenges, knowledge was preserved and transmitted, artworks were created, and traditions were formed that left an indelible mark on history. We see how multifaceted and diverse life in the castle was, from severe nightly tournaments to sophisticated evenings, from strict observance of religious rites to the creative inspiration of craftsmen. Each element of this complex mosaic makes the picture of medieval life even more vibrant and rich. The eighth part of our journey through the medieval castle reveals another fascinating aspect of life within its walls: social hierarchy and daily interactions. The castle was a microcosm of society where every individual had their place and role, where relationships were governed by strict etiquette and customs. At the pinnacle of the social structure were the lord and his family. They occupied the highest position, enjoying privileges and respect. The lord was law within the castle, and his decisions affected all inhabitants. He was responsible for protecting his subjects and ensuring justice was served. Below the lord were the knights, the military elite of the castle. They swore allegiance to their lord and were expected to uphold the code of chivalry. Knights participated in training exercises, tournaments, and, if necessary, defended the castle in times of war. The clergy, represented by the chaplain and other religious officials, held significant influence. They conducted religious services, administered sacraments, and provided spiritual guidance. The relationship between the lord and the clergy was symbiotic. The clergy prayed for the Lord's success, while the Lord provided protection and resources. Servants and workers formed the largest part of the castle population. They included kitchen staff, stewards, blacksmiths, carpenters, and other specialized craftsmen. Each had their specific duties and responsibilities. The servants worked tirelessly to maintain the castle's operations, from cooking and cleaning to repairing and maintaining the buildings and equipment. Daily life in the castle was governed by a strict routine. Meals were a central part of the day, with elaborate feasts often taking place in the Great Hall. Entertainment varied from hunting and jousting to music and storytelling. Communication within the castle was essential. The Lord's Court was a place of political intrigue and social interaction. News and information traveled through the castle via messengers and word of mouth. Relationships were built and maintained through a complex web of courtesy, respect, and duty. Thus, life in the medieval castle was a tapestry of social roles, obligations, and interactions. Each person, from the highest lord to the humblest servant, contributed to the functioning of this intricate society. The castle's social structure, while rigid, provided a framework for order and stability in an often chaotic world. The ninth part of our journey through the medieval castle takes us deeper into the daily realities and customs that shaped life within its walls. The castle was not only a fortress and center of power, but also a place of constant activity and movement. Every morning, the castle came to life with the sounds of servants preparing for the day's tasks. The kitchens buzzed with activity as cooks prepared meals for the lord and his retinue. Smoke rose from the chimneys, signaling the start of the cooking process, while the scent of fresh bread and roasted meats filled the air. The great hall was the heart of social interaction. interaction. Here, meals were not just about sustenance, but also about ceremony and display. Feasts were often accompanied by music and entertainment, with minstrels providing entertainment and setting the mood. The hall was also a place where important decisions were made and where news was shared. Workshops and craft areas were scattered throughout the castle, each dedicated to a specific trade. Blacksmiths hammered away at their anvils, creating weapons and tools, while carpenters crafted furniture and repaired wooden structures. Weavers and tailors worked in secluded rooms, producing clothing and textiles that were essential for both practical use and display. The castle also had its own system of security and defense. Guards patrolled the walls and towers, keeping watch for any signs of danger. The drawbridge was raised and lowered with care, controlling access to the inner courtyard. Education and training were integral parts of life in the castle. Young knights underwent rigorous training in the art of combat, while scribes and scholars continued to copy and preserve important texts. The castle was a hub of learning and culture, despite its seemingly harsh environment. Finally, the castle was a place of rituals and traditions, from the daily prayers in the chapel to the occasional tournaments and celebrations. Every aspect of life was steeped in tradition. These customs helped to maintain order and cohesion within the community, creating a sense of belonging and purpose among its inhabitants. The 10th part of our exploration reveals how the medieval castle was a center of cultural and intellectual life, despite its primarily military and administrative functions. The castle hosted a variety of cultural events that enriched the lives of its inhabitants and fostered a sense of community. One of the most cherished activities was the celebration of feasts and festivals. These events were not only about indulging in food and drink, but also about reinforcing social bonds. The Great Hall would be decorated with flowers and tapestries, and musicians would play their instruments, creating a festive atmosphere. Guests and residents would participate in games, storytelling, and sometimes even jousting matches. The castle also served as a place of learning and scholarship. The lord often employed learned clerics and scribes who maintained the castle's archives and wrote important documents. Young pages and knights received education in reading, writing, and the arts of chivalry. Some castles even had small libraries where valuable manuscripts were and stored and studied. Art and craft were highly esteemed within the castle walls. Artisans created beautiful objects from intricate jewelry to finely crafted furniture. The castle walls were adorned with tapestries, paintings, and sculptures, adding to its aesthetic appeal. Craftsmen often worked in the castle workshops, creating items that were both functional and decorative. Medical care was another important aspect of castle life. The castle physician, often a skilled healer or apothecary, tended to the health of the residents. Herbal remedies, basic surgery, and other medical practices were carried out within the castle walls, ensuring that the inhabitants remained healthy and able to perform their duties. Religion played a central role in the daily life of the castle. Regular church services were held in the chapel, and the clergy provided spiritual guidance and support. The castle was a place of pilgrimage and devotion, with religious ceremonies and rituals strengthening the moral and ethical fabric of the community. Thus, the medieval castle was not just a fortress of defense, but also a vibrant center of culture, learning, and community life. Its inhabitants, through their diverse roles and responsibilities, created a harmonious and interconnected society within its walls.